Yeah.
There's always a narrative for that, you know. So let's just hope that they took a ton
Let's hope they had a bad edit.
Yeah, let's hope they took actually a ton of accountability. They just cut it all. Hi.
Hello.
That's
I'm Mitch.
Weird leg position.
They can't see it.
You can't see it.
It is weird, but it's fine. It's the most comfortable look I could be.
I'm like a princess in the corner over here.
Yeah.
Shoving you off to the side. Get out of my frame.
Exactly.
So we are here today to talk about Couple to Throuple, end of the season, episodes 8 through 10.
Yeah, 8, 9, and 10.
We're going to be doing things a little bit differently for a couple of reasons. A big reason is that NBC, right? NBC?
Peacock, I don't know who, maybe it was NBC. I don't remember.
Doesn't love these these videos.
We went back and forth on a couple copyright claims, and it was hard. Like, I had to re-edit a video 4 times. I think I mentioned to people that one time.
And they weren't even claims, they're blocks.
Yeah, so this isn't going to be universal. We're finishing this season of this show that way.
Yeah.
You'll notice in our Netflix branded shows that we can show a lot more video because Netflix is just way more chill about it.
Yeah.
They never give us a hard time. It's just easier to edit, easier to put out, easier to, pump out content for y'all. So that's one reason we're always really excited when there's a good Netflix show to watch.
Right. And it's really just easier for like the format that we already established. So it'll be kind of cool today too, because we're trying something that we haven't tried before, which is essentially doing kind of like a recap of these last 3 episodes. And we'll talk about our feelings about the situations and the people as we recap.
And we're still going to show some video too, but it's just going to be a lot easier to show the amount of video that the NBC will accept us putting on here. So
hopefully this works for you too, because this season of Couple to Throuple was actually awesome.
The ending was a roller coaster. If y'all have, most of you've probably seen it actually by now, but 8, 9, 10 were explosive. My back and forth, I felt so erratic.
I know. I felt the same way.
Should we?
Yeah, let's roll.
In? Okay.
Yep. So episode 8 kicks off with Maximo and Ash and Jonathan going up to confront Ramon and Ashmal.
Yeah, dude.
I guess.
Oh my god.
Do you think he's going to willingly talk to Jonathan now that he's back in?
I don't think
you
so
don't
either.
think so?
I don't think so either. Just gonna hit the fan.
Well, because Jonathan actually just says that he wants to have some closure with Ashmal and Ramon.
But I don't think that he meant that he wanted it to be like an all of them kind of conversation. I felt like he meant he wanted an alone conversation with Ramon and Ashmal, and instead Maximo and Ash took that to mean they were all 3 gonna walk up to them.
Like, I feel like the boys are gonna want to talk to me.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes, and we can even facilitate it.
Maximo and Ash completely centered themselves in the conversation. It was freaking annoying to watch.
Yeah, it was frustrating.
Well, you see the way Jonathan comes in later on in these episodes too. He clearly just wanted to talk to the two of them. He actually had obviously no interest in Max and Ash.
Yes.
Honestly.
Yeah, right. I would say that. It seemed like just wanted to get back in the house.
Yeah.
Basically. Another awkward thing is that Frank was there.
The whole time.
Jesus.
We have limited time with Frank, so it's like I'd rather invest all of our time in kind of making this and growing this.
Poor Frank sitting, I think, in the middle of Ramon and Ashmal while Jonathan is saying, hey, do you want to talk? And Ramon is like, actually, no.
When we talked about it, we don't need to have a conversation about anything.
Which is fair, because he knew he was heated. And already Ramon and Ashmal hate Maximo and Ash.
Yeah.
And then they're coming up to them, trying to act like they're above everyone and like they're pious. Like, what's the right word?
I think I use the word pious, but they just seem like better than everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, they look down on everyone.
And basically the way they were talking to him too made it seem like they were like, oh, it's such a shame, Ramon, that you don't want to talk about this right now.
I think as initial thruples, there might be just some closure that could be helpful for y'all.
Ramon actually, I found this so freaking aggravating. It's Ash and Max walking up, acting like they're going to facilitate this conversation. When Ramon says he doesn't want to talk about it, he has no need for the conversation. They ignore his request to give him space. They ignore his consent.
Yeah.
They don't want his or care about his consent, and they just throw it on him anyway.
And if
it's
anything,
so bullshit. from those two in particular, the way they act.
Absolutely, but that's how they do. That's frankly how they do everything.
Yeah.
And then the most irritating thing to me is that if someone asks you, like if you walk up to someone and you're like, "Hey, do you want to talk?" and they say no, just respect that.
Yeah.
Don't act like you're better than them. Like, "Oh, I'm sorry, you can't see past this."
I respect that. Right now it's way too fresh. Let's just put it at that.
Yeah, okay. But you're not in the place to share, or you don't, like, because what you said is that...
Have this conversation. I'm sorry, you can't be a grown-up and mature
honestly,
about this.
what we see in these episodes too is that Ramon does an okay job of removing himself when he knows he's too heated to have a conversation.
Absolutely.
And this is an example where he was not ready to have a conversation.
No.
Doesn't mean he won't ever have a conversation. He didn't want to talk right there.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was so crap.
I don't think there was a way, frankly, for that to go well for him, because if he had gotten emotional and blown up, then he would have been emotionally immature for blowing up. If he says he doesn't want to talk, they don't respect that either. There's really nothing that he could have done that they would have respected, and they never should have walked up to him to have that conversation.
I agree.
Ever.
This is also the beginning. We already have completely shifted our perspectives on Britney and Sean, and by the end of these 3 episodes, they're some of my most favorite people I've ever seen on TV ever.
Yeah, they're amazing.
Love them.
So supportive.
But Britney in this episode says,
"It makes me hurt for my friends, Asha and Ramon."
And when I heard that line from Britney, like I saw Britney open up so much emotionally through the course of this episode, or this season, and it's so Sean too. Well, maybe not emotionally. He was always kind of emotionally there, I think, and ready to support people. But Britney's journey. Oh my God, she could be the main character of this whole thing.
I know, she's amazing.
Them as a couple were incredible.
Yeah. For sure.
I love them so much.
Super cute.
So if y'all are out there, like, much respect. Honestly.
So they all go to bed.
Yeah.
And they like put it to rest, and then realize that when they have breakfast, they all eat breakfast together. So waking up, Ramon comes down to breakfast, but like very quickly realizes that he is not in an emotional place to deal with sitting at a table with Maximo, Ash, and Jonathan with everything that's happened.
Yeah.
Because, like, pretty clearly, Ramon still has feelings for Jonathan. Super hurt that Jonathan said yes to Maximo and Ash.
Yeah,
in that
they kind of felt betrayed. And because they don't know how really fake it is for Jonathan to even be in that couple at that point. They just see that he's joining them. And honestly, in the background, we're seeing Jonathan shading Ramon and Ashmal to Max and Ash.
Yeah.
So Ramon's feeling like Jonathan's kind of being weird and two-faced is pretty legitimate.
Yeah.
It happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Ramon leaves the table.
But just don't let them let you. Yeah.
I'll be back. I'll be back in a little bit.
Yeah, just take a second.
Yeah.
And he and Ashmal get into it a little bit, because Ashmal is basically like, "You could stay," and Ramon's like, "Nah, though. Like, if I stay, I'm gonna lose my mind. So instead, I'm gonna go and just be by myself for a little bit," which I actually think is. Like,
I respect that.
Yeah, that's the maturity that he needed to exhibit in some of these things. Like, you're not always going to be able to handle yourself in a situation, but you can remove yourself, and he did.
I wrote in my notes, I felt the pride for Ramon in that moment, like the pride a father would feel for a child, which I don't understand because I don't have any, but I just felt like I was so emotional through watching these, and one of those things I was like, oh my God. He sees where he is. He needs to take space. He'll come back.
He just needs a minute.
Versus a few of the other moments throughout the show where he really kind of blew up.
Yeah. So he goes back to his room, and then when Jonathan comes down and realizes he's not there, pretty quickly Jonathan is like, "I need to go talk to him." So he goes up to Ramon and Ashmal's room. Sits down on the bed.
Messy. It's so messy. The back and forth.
He sits down on the bed and starts confessing his feelings to Ramon, saying,
"Checking on you because I can't stop thinking about you and Ashmal."
And Ramon very much shuts it down. He's like, there are no more feelings. It's over.
Well, because realistically, like at this point, Ramon and Ashmal are already a mess. And Jonathan is bringing more mess to
they don't need that.
The place that doesn't need more mess. Like, it's messy enough
We've
already.
all seen it.
Right?
Yeah.
So, Ramon actually, like, stays pretty stoic through that conversation.
I think we're just focusing on moving on right now.
And then Jonathan and Frank start kind of having these really weirdly heated conversations where Frank is like, "Come at me, bro." You know what I mean?
Stay away from my man.
And like Jonathan is lingering the whole time, like trying to get a conversation with Ashmal, like sitting next to there. And Frank's like, I'm not leaving his side, because Frank got the details from Jonathan that he just needed to have a conversation with Ashmal too, one-on-one. And Frank's like, not gonna let it happen.
Yeah.
Watching Frank play defense, I felt really bad for him.
I did
In
too.
a moment there, I was like, I really respect Frank, because at that point, it still seemed like there was a chance that they were gonna move on from Jonathan, and Frank would be their throuple. When you see how it plays out, like I feel bad for him, but he like that was a weird, that was a mess there. Jonathan,
it was
like,
clearly because Jonathan
so awkward.
Jonathan knows at this point like Ramon is not gonna be like his key to getting back in the relationship.
That's true. He's a weasel.
So then
he's a bit of a weasel, right?
He is a little bit of a weasel, and so then he tries to get to Ashmal.
Yeah,
and that's where
if
like
I could just talk to Ashmal,
right?
thinking,
Exactly.
Yep.
And that's where Frank is like, no, dude.
Yeah.
Not happening.
Yeah.
So then at some point, that same day, Jonathan is able to like track Ashmal down.
How are you?
I'm good.
I just want to start off by saying I'm sorry.
And they have a conversation, and Ashmal and Ramon appear to be on the same page where
they're like, it's over.
And just seeing you with your new throuple and like, yeah, this is my group and this is how we talk to people. Really bad taste, you know, like in my mouth.
And Ashmal, I remember him saying something about,
I have nothing but genuine love and care for you because I got to know the person that you are, and I really do like that person.
But it's just not going to work out.
Yes.
He was very chill and respectful of Jonathan, while also holding the line that he and Ramon agreed to, and then also respecting Frank in that moment.
Yeah.
And that all went really well.
It did.
For about 10 minutes.
Right. So then they start playing, the whole house starts playing a game of like giant Jenga.
And all the Jenga cubes are like make out with somebody, or tell two people to make out, or do a throuple make out. They're all
like,
sexual.
Sexual icebreaker style.
Yeah, basically.
Like Jenga.
Which for some couples was really big. And then some people had their first kisses. It was cool for some people, so a lot of the people.
Yeah.
Don't fall over, Frank.
For instance, like I think Britney and Darian had their first kiss during the giant Jenga.
Yeah.
And that was cool to see, because that's the first time. And I actually think, wasn't it Lauren and Jess also?
Lauren and Jess also had their first kiss.
Make-out. It wasn't their
Make-out?
first
Oh, they
kiss,
had like a
but it
peck
was like
before.
their first
Yeah.
make-out. Yeah. So
And they
that
went
was kinda
for it.
cute.
A lot of them did. Frank was making out with people. It was really cute watching them all like jumping on each other, and you know, and then it was adorable.
It was adorable.
Yeah.
And then Jonathan, Maximo, and Ash have like a three-way kiss that looks awkward as hell, frankly, because I don't think that Jonathan ever intended
in the back
on
of his
being
head,
in that relationship.
that whole time he's thinking about Ashmal and Ramon.
Yeah, exactly.
And you can see it. He even says it later on.
Yeah,
He was just thinking about them the whole time.
Which is kind of crappy,
Yeah.
but it is what it is.
But he did it to really great people, so I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Frank, Ashmal, and Ramon also have like a three-way kiss scenario. And Jonathan is like pretty visibly affected by watching that. And then apparently everything has changed for Ashmal, and he wants
like
Jonathan
a
back.
dime.
Well, you kind of convinced me for a while now that you didn't have any feelings
And
for
I
him.
didn't, but I think they just came a little flooding back when I just saw him be so clear.
Because why not, honestly?
Also,
why not?
he's just not as attracted to Frank or something. Like the spark's not there. He says it, and that sucks for Frank. But they've got this weird U-Haul love at first sight thing going on with Jonathan, and they can't get over it. And I got so freaking mad at this point. The back and forth with Ramon, Ashmal, and John. I kind of get it because there's a lot of big feelings, and if you see how the relationship played off after the show, it makes sense. But it's like so wishy-washy and impossible to peg down. It was
I hated
hard to
it.
watch.
Watching it was so irritating.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't hold back my frustration at these people, because you watch someone do something pretty emotionally mature. Like you can tell throughout the show that relationship is fireworks in a bad way.
Yeah.
They're fighting all the time. Jonathan's wanting out of the relationship. Then they're mad that Jonathan wants out of the relationship. Then Jonathan wants back in the relationship. Like it's
and then Ramon's
clearly
upset every other
unhealthy.
episode. Well, actually,
Right.
like at the beginning or end of the episode, he's always upset.
Always upset. And that just doesn't feel like
And
a
us
good
moms.
foundation for any successful, healthy relationship. And yet here we go again, and they're going to get back together is what it ends up feeling like.
And then at the end of the episode, they're what the retreat. What do they call it? There's that point where they do like a test or whatever. And this episode was that they had former partners or former options or potential options come talk to them and have a date in private, and that got messy. And for a lot of them, it was actually good. So Dylan and Lauren, actually, this is the beginning. By the end of this, too, Dylan and Lauren, for me, I actually really liked them, like a lot. Yeah. I have a ton of respect for them at the end of the show, which I didn't like. They were one of my least favorite couples at the beginning.
I hated them at the beginning.
They have Mia come in, and Mia gives them harsh feedback.
I guess I just felt dismissed. I don't know. I did have a bad taste in my mouth, and I was really like, well, thanks for making it very clear. Like, sorry I didn't put out for you. Like, good luck with the next one.
And Dylan and Lauren take it like well.
Yeah.
And it was impressive as hell, to the point that when Mia gets to clear the air and they accept what she says, she's even like, I would date you if you wanted to.
Yeah.
She's open to dating them again, and the way they communicate with her was so cool, man.
Yeah.
I loved it.
It's funny because she actually came at them pretty intense.
Pretty heated.
Her language was really heated.
Like overly sexualized and stuff.
Yeah, sexualized,
and, like, she didn't matter. It's just that they wanted to bang her kind of thing. And she was also a slow mover too. I think she said that.
And then they really didn't react negatively at all.
And they didn't blame her too. They think they phrased things in appropriate ways.
That was not meant to come off that way. We've always had good intentions.
They said thank you too to her. They're like, thank you for telling us this. Like, we really appreciate your honesty. I mean, it's weird because I would have thought at the beginning of this, they would be the least likely to make people feel comfortable coming to them with that kind of criticism.
They seem, I mean, they're both like huge. They seem intense.
Yeah.
Like big energy, but they're like,
no, they were open to the feedback.
Calm.
Yeah.
It's weird.
They were open to it.
Yeah, they're not the people I thought they were at the beginning of the show at all.
No, I really liked them by the end, and watching them take that feedback from Mia was awesome.
That was one of the big turning points. And before this, I was like, whatever, but they're one of my least favorites at the end, and that was a turning point for me. Totally different.
And then Max and Ash have a couple of people come out for them. So Darian, who's currently in a relationship with Sean and Britney, comes out for Max and Ash and expresses an interest in them. And essentially at this point, this is the first time that we hear Darian say that she wants to be part of 2 thruples.
Yeah, she basically just wants an open. She doesn't want to be in a closed relationship at all.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what she says.
Yeah,
right?
She wants to be with Max and Ash, and she wants to be with Sean and Britney, but she doesn't want to leave Sean and Britney for Max and Ash. Which
I was immediately turned off by, just because of how awful Max and Ash had been visibly to multiple people by this point. And she was still interested in them. Gave me huge red flags for Darian at this moment.
Also, she had earlier in the season told Sean and Britney that she wanted to be exclusive. So the pivot from that to her wanting to be in an open relationship with 2 thruples at the same time is a little bit
rich.
Strange.
It feels like a gotcha. Like, oh yeah, I want a close relationship. Oh, wait a second. No, and I never did.
And maybe
because she leaned in so hard to the, no, I need an open relationship. And maybe she's self-discovering or something.
Yeah, maybe she just didn't really know what she wanted, and she thought that she wanted things to be closed, and then realized her feelings and realized she didn't. But
the amount of times she said that she loved Max and Ash's energy, though, and their energy is narcissist, just makes me think that either she's susceptible to narcissists or that she is too cool with that whole perspective.
Well,
I don't know.
What she said was, at one point, that she liked how free and how themselves they were.
I think that, because she was really attracted to their queerness, I think in particular.
Their queer energy
and I get that.
Strong.
That was one of the things we liked about them at first, too, until we got to know them.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was the bit, for sure.
And then Maximo and Ash have a second person come out, and that's Becca, who they had previously dated.
Yeah.
We didn't want to halt the energy with you by letting you know, oh, we want to explore this other person, if we didn't even know we wanted to.
It went okay.
It went fine.
But Becca was in no way the front runner.
No.
And I think she called him out a little bit, but it wasn't over the top. Becca does a good job of expressing her feelings without being super aggressive about it.
Yeah, I do feel like she does this thing a lot, though, where she brings something up, and then, so Maximo and Ash are so expert at not taking any accountability for anything ever, and Becca is not good at holding people accountable.
Yeah, she wants to hear the good news and then be okay with it.
Yeah. And she accepts their weak answers or weak explanations really easily. And I didn't like that at all.
I agree.
Britney and Sean end up having... who comes out for them? What's her name again?
Oh,
Sanu.
Sanu. And they have a really good chat with Sanu.
They do. And at this point, I think they're a little irritated with Darian because Darian's expressed an interest in Max Monash, and they're not really down for that. They get sort of
cold feet around that.
Right.
And they really, I think, regret the way it fell out with Sanu. And I like that they're able to patch things up with Sanu. It's good for Sanu, and I think it's good for them to be able to be like, hey, you know, like, you're cool and no hard feelings. And, like, thank you for being you kind of thing. It was really cool.
It was nice to see, especially given how much tension there was early on in the season between them. And then Jonathan and Ashmal, or I'm sorry, Ramon and Ashmal.
You have an appearance from Jonathan.
Yeah.
In which I think they basically say that's where they've already had their individual conversations, and Jonathan basically says that he wants to be with them.
We've made it clear how we feel, unless you still are wondering.
No, I think I do know how you guys feel.
Yeah, and I think they say to him they also want to be with him. Like,
and at
I don't
that
think
point,
there's any question.
There's that gut drop because, you know, Frank's getting dropped.
Yeah.
It was so rough.
Then we move into a stay or swap ceremony.
Where every single couple is with every single one of their thirds, and then the potential other third, or either fourth in the moment.
Yep.
And they each, in front of everybody else, have to say, I'm breaking up with you and dating the other person, or I'm staying with you. And it was rough.
Thank you for joining us back in the atrium of the resort. Today, I know for many of you was a very interesting day.
Honestly, it was rough. For most people, it went fine. It went as expected. The couples were all, like, you know, pretty chill.
I think, everyone stayed except for Jonathan, who swapped from Max Monash back to Ashmal and Ramon. And then that put Max Monash in the position of having to pick somebody else, basically.
But then, because Darian stayed with Britney and Sean, they also couldn't have their second, which would have been Darian. So they go with their third, Becca, because they still want to be on TV.
Third and final. She's the only option left.
At that point.
And they pick her, but they don't really want to pick her.
Wow, that was messy.
Here's some
ads.
Okay.
I don't want to say, like, better means us, but in this situation, it is.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you're right. It's
because
at that
mess.
point,
it makes me sick.
They would have had to leave, right? Like, at that point, they couldn't have stayed in the house.
I guess because the entire rest of the show is them hashing it out with this last person. This is the last stay or swap. If you don't have a third here, you're done with the show.
Yeah.
They knew it.
And then poor Frank
They used Becca because they're oh, I'm sorry. I'm just going to chill out. Every time I talk about Max and Ash, I'm going to have to censor myself left and right.
Yeah.
Let's keep going. I'm so mad at them.
Okay. And unfortunately, that means that Frank is cut from the house because Frank is no longer in a relationship because Ashmal and Ramon chose to swap him out for Jonathan. And Frank is pretty upset about it.
He handles it really well in front of the camera, and then you see him crying behind the camera. And
for me, I feel like I was at the right place at the wrong time.
Frank seems like a great dude, and I feel bad for him, and I hope he's good. I hope he's good out there.
I hope he's good too, because he literally still says positive things about Ashmal and Ramon.
Man, Frank is great. He came out so well in this, I think.
Frank was great.
Yeah.
So they all go up to their rooms for the night, and the big conversation that happens at this point is really between Max, Ash, and Becca.
And the universe always has a plan.
Were my feelings ever a consideration in that plan?
Becca does what she's great at, which is saying the truth, which is that she feels that she was their third choice, and that doesn't feel good. And Maximo and Ash are basically like, yeah, and?
I wrote down Max and Ash are effing delusional, self-centered and then Max just says emotions over and over without saying anything else. He's like, I'm not emotionally connected. What does that even mean?
Yeah,
I'm not emotionally connected to her, though. I'm not emotionally... What?
I know. And he keeps saying it.
Clarify anything.
It could be anything. It could be just him saying something as simple as, like, you know, I haven't had a chance to have any big conversations with Becca.
Yeah.
We haven't really talked about anything that makes me feel like I'm getting to know her on a deeper level. Instead, he just keeps saying he's he has an emotional block. They're not emotionally connected. And
all he does
no
is
sense.
gaslight and blame Becca the entire rest of the show.
Yeah,
basically.
absolutely.
They both do it, but
Right.
Max is particularly bad at it.
Yeah.
And Ash is always willing to jump in.
Yeah.
It's so trash the way they treat Becca.
Well, and they don't realize. So, like, that night, she tells them how
Yeah.
she's feeling. She's like, this doesn't feel good. I don't feel good not being someone's choice, and I wasn't your choice. And they're basically like, yeah, wish we could tell you something different, but that's correct.
There's at least honesty there, but they step back from that later on, and they
Yeah.
basically pretend that conversation never happened
Yep.
because it doesn't make them look good. Not even thinking about the fact that it's all recorded on camera.
Right.
We
And
saw it happen.
in the future, like at a different point, they tell her that she wasn't transparent with them, wasn't straightforward, didn't
She said
tell them
immediately
what she was thinking.
not only what she was thinking, but was happening.
Yeah.
That's what she correctly observed the
Yes.
truth. And then she doesn't want to fight with people. You can see
No.
that she's kind of, like you said, she's maybe a bit of a people pleaser.
Yeah.
She should never be around people like that if you're a people
No.
pleaser. And
No.
I'm glad the way things panned out in the end. But it's so hard watching her doing a lot of the right steps and her just being manipulated by two people that are the
Yeah.
worst.
Yeah.
Absolute worst.
So she ends up going to sleep, and it almost looks like, she just covers her face and she's very sad, and she goes to bed, and they're still doing whatever they're doing in the shower while she's sleeping.
Yeah.
She wakes up the next morning, and obviously, like, that's just a lot. I think she's probably still processing everything.
Mm-hmm.
And she doesn't immediately talk to them again, because also, what's the point? At that point, like, you'd have to have like a reason to continue to have the conversation with someone, because if all they're going to say to you is like, yeah, you were a second choice, what?
Yeah.
Like, what's the point then of talking to them? So she ends up going to a couple of the people in the house that she feels close to and kind of talking about how she feels, and then is determined to approach them like later in the day. So basically, she's going to enjoy herself, they're going to enjoy themselves, and then she's going to talk to them when it makes sense. Like, kind of the least dramatic solution, right?
Yeah.
And that irritates them.
What's up with Becca? Like, are we gonna talk to her, or do we wait for her to talk to us? Like,
I was hoping she would.
Same.
Because they're so reasonable and open and emotionally mature.
Uh-huh. Oh,
And better. They're just better than everyone else.
They're like,
all
I'm
they
like, why
do
are
is
you?
her
You
over.
want to talk to her? You approach her. You're adults.
They dumped her already.
Right.
And they're using her as the third choice to stay on the show. And
Yeah.
they blame her for not being open with them.
Yeah.
And then Max is like, I don't trust her. I don't trust her.
Yeah. Yep.
Ugh.
Yep. I think did they end up having a conversation again before they go to Panama and see
Maybe
their friends?
I think at a certain point, everything gets smoothed over. Either it's editing or it's just everybody got really horny at some point and started making out and thrusting under the sheets. So there was a point where Dylan was just I think this is the point where Dylan was reflecting on the fact that they came to the show like Dylan and Lauren came in super horny or just kind of confused and not knowing how to handle the throupling, and I think that's when they started bringing up the conversation about they wish they had gone slower in the physical element of their earlier throupling relationships. And it's seeing that this is where Dylan and Lauren are super cool in my eyes, where they're really just like, wow, we didn't do this right, and we really like Jess, and we want to make this work, and I wish we hadn't done what we had done earlier. It was so cool watching them from that point on.
It's so interesting to look at couples like Sean and Brittany and Dylan and Lauren, who I initially, when we started watching this show, did not like. Least favorite couples. I would have not wanted to be in a throuple with them, like absolutely not. And then by the end of this, they're the couples that I feel like have the best reflection on themselves, the most accountability, the most growth, absolutely. And they are the two couples that I'm like, dang, like those are people I would actually want to be around in real life. So I was just a terrible judge of character at the beginning of this.
I think, and I will say Dylan and Lauren, I wouldn't be friends with, not because I think they're bad people, but because they just don't have anything in common with them.
We just don't work out like they do.
Yeah, and I don't know that I have anything in common with Sean and Brittany, but they just seem a little bit more chill, like West Coasty, you know, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I kept on saying how much I would just want to be friends with Sean, because he just seems like the chillest friend in the world.
And Brittany
He's
seems
so supportive of
fun.
everybody. And Brittany's fun as hell.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, they're both obviously fun, isn't it? You said Sean's a DJ. Brittany apparently has 2 million followers on Insta as like a Insta fitness influencer. So in saying that, they live in LA. They're doing that whole like LA lifestyle, but they seem pretty cool.
They do.
And I don't know. I think there's a lot of quote unquote fake people in LA, but they're some of the most real people on this show.
Yeah.
So cool, man.
Yeah.
I loved watching them the last 3 episodes.
Me too. And really seeing Dylan and Lauren come to that realization. And then I also think like realizing that what was missing with Mia wasn't necessarily the sexual connection.
Yeah.
It was other things.
It was just a lifestyle alignment.
Right. And they attributed it to that, you know, to like a physical connection. But then Jess also wants to move slow.
Yeah, for
and they're
good
willing
reasons.
to wait for her.
Yeah.
Because it fits better.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know? Like it makes
and
more
they say
sense.
that. They say that.
Yeah.
I think they even say it in the last episode that they thought with Mia they were trying something different and they thought that was a good idea, but it wasn't a good idea. They liked Jess because she fits so perfectly into their life.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then they end up going to like downtown Panama, Old Town Panama, and the show surprises all of the couples with like members of their family. So some people have friends come, some people have their
the classic
parents come.
Family episode in any reality TV show.
Right.
It's what it is.
And I don't know.
Nothing consequential
nothing
happened.
happens.
They all were like, "Oh my god, this is a challenging conversation. Oh no, you're great." Every single one went that way. Where by the end of it, it really accomplished nothing.
It accomplished nothing. Yeah,
But,
they flew a bunch of people to Panama.
Yeah,
That's what it
so
accomplished.
good for them. Those people are probably stoked. Yeah.
It seems fun.
Free trip.
But yeah. So we get to the final episode, and
My first note is more Handy J's.
Okay,
because it starts. Okay, sorry.
No, you go. You go.
It just starts with sheets moving, and like you know Jonathan, Ramon, and Ashmal at this point. It's a very sexual connection that they have.
I think I was
Okay,
gonna
all
say
right.
maybe less
Crude?
intensely. Yeah, I was gonna say you can tell that their sexual connection is not a problem.
That's not a problem. I think it's the glue keeping them together at this point. Honestly.
Yeah,
because it's not the emotional stability.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I think a cool thing that happens is that Britney is able to fully come out as bisexual.
I guess I'm like coming out as officially bisexual.
Which obviously
so cool to
seems
watch.
like a big thing for her.
She does it on live TV. Well, not live TV. She does it on TV. Yeah, and she didn't get pushed there. But Darian was also a bit of like, what do you think it means that you like me as a woman?
Yeah.
And then Brittany said something about how she's like, I never saw myself as bi. She's like, but I guess I am. And then you see that shift in her mind and the way she's expressing herself. She's so much more like emotionally open after this point, and of course the connection with Darian is going pretty well too. So there's a lot of like more comfort in that I think helps out with that. But it was watching Brittany's growth there and her coming out and stuff was like really cool.
It was. I cried.
Yeah.
Because it was just so sweet to watch her realize that she could be herself. And then Sean says that he's proud of her.
Oh, yeah. Sean is just like the fucking best.
It feels amazing to see your partner learn and accept a new part of them.
It's so cute.
Spoiler, not a spoiler, says at the end of the season, they get married, or they get engaged at the end of this, which is awesome. And I'm so happy for them.
Me
honestly.
too. It's really cool to watch the connection that they have.
Yeah.
And how they support each other. And how, like, they're both each other's biggest cheerleader. That's so cool.
They still needle or challenge each other. Like, Brittany gets a little heated. Sean, like, pokes her, nudges her a bit. But, like, you don't want people in your life... Well, for me, I don't want people in my life that are going to literally never give me even the slightest hard time. I want people in my life that kind of razz me a bit or they challenge me. And they do that, but in, like, it seems like the healthiest ways. They seem like a really great match.
It reminds me a lot of... like positive things in our relationship where like we don't just support each other regardless. Like we definitely will challenge each other and say like, do we need to be doing that? Was that like the best way to handle a situation? But in a way where I personally feel very supported in like growing as a human being. And I feel like I see that with Sean. I'm getting choked up. Like I'm getting choked up.
There was even a moment. There was a moment where, and maybe it was in the previous episode, but Brittany kept on saying she didn't want to talk to Darian because she was still mad that Darian wanted to make out with Max and Ash, right?
Yeah.
And then it was over the course of almost an entire day. She kept on saying, "I'm not ready to talk about it. I'm not ready. I don't know what I'm thinking." And then at the end of that day or the next day, she has a really big, I think, good and appropriate conversation with Darian. But at the very start of it, Sean jokes. He says she's done thinking about it now. She's ready because
She's done
processing because she kept on saying, "No, I'm processing. No, I'm processing. No, I'm processing." And you can tell Sean wants to push her out the door and be like, "Let's do this."
Right.
But he also gives her the space. But he also elbows her in the ribs a little bit when it finally comes time. So that's that kind of the relationship that for me I find very comforting.
It's nice because it's like you want someone. Well, I want someone that can like push me to grow and be a better person, and who can also make like small jokes.
Yeah.
From time to time about like stressful situations. Darian expresses to Sean and Britney. So Sean and Britney are kind of on a high, honestly.
Yeah.
And then Darian expresses to them that she thinks that she is just afraid of all commitment in general.
And she needs to be an open relationship no matter what, basically.
Right.
Definitely like a toxic trait that I've realized is that I kind of get bored easily.
Oh my God.
I mean, I wish that she would have said that earlier on.
Which doesn't go over particularly
I feel like
well.
she knew this before coming. And I actually think, doesn't Sean say something like, you should have known that before coming to the show? Yeah, or he says it to the camera or something.
Mm-hmm.
But they kind of take it well eventually.
Yeah.
And they kind of coax her back and they say, we're willing to accept you. I actually saw them giving a ton, saying... Their expectations was a close relationship, and then they're like, okay, you want to be open, we can try it.
Yeah.
You know, they're very giving in
this
a lot of
was
ways.
after that though, so she pulls out the I want to be like open, you know, we're just dating each other kind of conversation. And then when they're talking about they're basically moving into the phase of the show where you decide whether you're going to stay together after the show.
Yeah, it's like the last day or so. Yeah.
Right. So they're told essentially that all of the couples are going to be staying alone and all of the singles are going to be leaving the resort for the night, and they're all going to spend the night apart to think about things, and then they'll come together at the next day for a matching ceremony where they'll decide, do we want to end this or do we want to continue this connection after the show? Essentially, do we want to commit to the throuple? And that after they get told that news, Sean and Britney ask Darian, they're like, well, what do you think? What do you think you're gonna do?
Yeah.
And Darian is like, well, I'm pretty afraid of commitment. And they're like, dude.
Great timing. Yeah.
Dude, what?
Yeah.
Versus, Dylan and Lauren approach Jess.
We're in it together now, and I'm really excited to see what that can lead to, you know? And I'm ready for it. I'm ready for it with you two.
Yeah. And they don't ask Jess to say what she's going to do. We're coming tomorrow and we're stepping forward. And I was like, dang, how nice
they
is
just
that?
completely reassure her.
Yeah.
And they put it in
Full
her camp.
transparency.
They give her... So we talked a lot about how the singles didn't have a lot of power in the show. They, in that moment, gave her the power.
Yeah.
They said, we here's what we're doing. It's up to you.
Yeah, and they didn't...
And that's cool.
They didn't
that's
press
cool.
her at all.
They didn't pressure her at all.
No.
They kept on saying, we're going to respect your boundaries. We don't want to pressure you.
Mm-hmm.
We really like you. And they showed it.
Yeah.
They showed up. They said what they were going to do. They said what they were going to do, and then they did it.
Yep.
They were cool as hell.
Yeah, all the couples sit down at a table.
Yeah.
And the couples have like one final dinner.
Yeah.
And they're asking each other questions.
So I think it's been no secret in the house that Ashmal and I have had quite the physical connection with Jonathan. So I'm curious to know, like, are you guys excited about kind of growing that?
The dinner is like mostly benign.
Yeah.
But Ramon does kind of poke at Max and Ash a bit. And he basically says to the whole table, he's like, so...
Do we feel like the other thruples in the resort, like, are actually genuine thruples?
Wow.
And the only couple that you could think is fake really is Max and Ash with Becca, and not because of Becca's fault.
And they don't take that well.
Yeah.
Like, at all. I mean, I don't know that I would expect them to take it well, but they don't. Okay, they don't like it at all.
I thought Ramon was being a little petty, but I also didn't care because of how horrible Max and Ash had been on this entire season.
Yeah, and we know Ramon's a mess at this point.
Yeah,
you know,
and he just wants to.
whatever.
He just wants to needle. He's throwing bombs over there.
Yeah.
You know?
So then Maxwell and Ash insinuate that Jonathan, Ramon, and Ashmal's throuple isn't real, which is the dumbest thing I've ever heard, because if any of the throuples are real, their throuple was real.
Yeah.
They're having sex with each other
Constantly.
pretty clearly.
Jonathan said yes to Max and Ash just so he could get back and talk to Ramon and Ashmal.
Right.
Like,
that seems pretty clear. He
it
never
seems pretty
says
real.
that, but like that seems
It
pretty
seems pretty clear.
that he was never really interested in being a throuple with them. And the way Max handles himself at that dinner is annoying. Like he pretends
ugly.
like he's above it all. Like he's too good to have the conversation.
And while throwing shade in all these like sort of subtle ways, but it's obvious, it's subtle, but you know when people talk like that, they're like,
Actually, I don't think I want to. It's just not necessary for me to put that energy out there. How I see your throuple doesn't matter.
And it's like, you're bringing it up right now.
Yeah.
You're throwing the shade while pretending he's not.
So I guess that moves pretty seamlessly into the matching ceremony.
Yeah, and then the last one is they put him on this platform. They say,
Lauren and Dylan, Jess, if you want to commit to this throuple, I invite you to meet in the middle.
Ignore the partial wardrobe change.
Yeah, life happened. So here we are at a different time, wrapping it all up.
She was just napping. Anyway, Jess, Dylan, and Lauren have an easy yes.
Yeah.
They step off to the side, and I think Jess is a little nervous about feeling reassured that they're not going to want more physical from her because she has some like trauma in the past where she got hypersexualized in like a throuple situation. They very much reassure her, and then they all step forward and they leave together.
Yep. It's pretty cute, honestly.
It was pretty cute. At the end of this is the moment for me where Dylan and Lauren were just top tier. They were so supportive of her. They're really reassuring, and I felt it. I mean,
I believe them.
Well, they were friends after the show too, so I think that it was honest. I think they didn't end up becoming a throuple because, like long term, because they just lived in different places, and it's not like people are going to move. A lot of people don't want to move just for a relationship, and that's understandable. But they still like met up. They liked each other. They're friends after that, and it was really cool.
Yeah, it was adorable.
Yeah. Britney and Sean and Darian also have a difficult decision. So Darian is concerned about the fact that she wants to have an open relationship, and Britney and Sean are really receptive to just trying it out. I think at the point of the final ceremony, he even says that
We do see you, and we're all going into it with love and just understanding and openness.
I think he and Britney are both uncomfortable with an open relationship, basically, but they're like, we want to try it with you.
Yep.
If that's what you need.
Yeah. So they all say yes to.
Darian, for a moment, really looks like she's not going to step forward, and then I think Sean once again reassures her, and then she finally does. She does run into their arms. They all kiss. They all hug. Yeah. It's very like positive energy at that point. But they all join up and they leave the villa together as well.
They seem, from like a technical standpoint, like they would have the best shot of actually working out because they all live in LA already. Yeah. So there's no distance. No one has to move. But then in the final credits of the show, we find out that not only are they not together, but they're not speaking. So
it sounded like it ended messy. Who knows? I don't like to project too much, but it's possible that openness thing didn't go very well. I honestly, at the end of the show too, I don't think Darian's necessarily a horrible person, but I didn't trust her very much given her going behind their back, trying to sort of talk about making out with other people. It just seemed very wishy-washy.
It seemed like a bad match, honestly. It just seemed like it wasn't the best fit for everybody.
But, and I think we already said this earlier, but Britney and Sean ended up getting engaged, and I think they're still doing well down there in LA.
Yeah,
and
which is so sweet.
I know.
And I wish them all of the happiness. They seem like a really good match, both super supportive of each other, really like kind, good people, and super excited for them.
Yeah.
So then who else do we have?
We'll save the worst for last. We want to end on a positive note. The last two suck, honestly.
Yeah.
And for various reasons.
Well, so maybe we talk about Jonathan, Ashmal, and Ramon first. So they all come to the circle. Ashmal and Ramon don't know what Jonathan is going to say because Jonathan has blindsided them and said no before, right? Because he left their throuple at one point.
And there's an intense element to this where Scott Evans tells them all to tell each other there at the decision platform what their biggest hangups are. So that's where all these couples are saying, you know, this stuff makes me afraid. And I think Jonathan brings up the fact
when I felt like an outsider.
Something's all
I understood that you guys needed some time to kind of get on the same page.
That it was very tumultuous and back and forth, and it made him uncomfortable and insecure.
All fair comments given the way that their relationship went. But they end up moving forward and also all saying yes. And Jonathan actually kind of sweetly asks both of them to be his boyfriend.
Was really adorable.
With that being said, Ramon and Ashmal, I do want to ask you both if you guys want to be my boyfriends.
Because I think there was an earlier moment where he was, and I think that was what breaking point for them, where he felt uncomfortable, where they labeled him a boyfriend.
Yeah.
And they all embrace. It's really cute.
It is. It's super sweet.
And then you find out afterwards.
Yeah, then you find out in the end credits that they tried to throuple. They did throuple for a few months.
I think Jonathan kept visiting them in Chicago, basically.
And then Ashmal basically broke up with both of them.
He was sick of whatever the hell was going on over there.
Yeah, and he left.
And then Ramon and Jonathan continued to date for a while.
Yep.
And then they broke up. Mm-hmm. And then none of them speak to Jonathan anymore, but Ramon and Ashmal remain best friends.
Right, whatever that means to them. Because it seemed like they kind of had a relationship where they were making out with a lot of other people. So my kind of feeling from that is like, friends.
They're
more
semi-dating.
Than friends. They're close.
Maybe. Yeah, who knows? But they're just officially friends right now.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then the final Becca, Maximo, and Ash,
it's
come out.
Infuriating.
Yeah, and it is irritating. Becca decides not to step forward, and Maximo and Ash also don't step forward, but then get very angry with Becca.
We just can't put our trust into somebody who truly made us feel like you were going to step forward today.
Blame her for everything. Say that she deceived them and lied to them. And, oh my God. He just gaslights her.
And what hurt was going to bed, being completely transparent with you, and then the next day waking up and never having that effort on your end.
Basically.
Yeah, Maximo is like pretty aggressively negative towards Becca in that final ceremony, and says that they were fooled. I think he says it multiple times.
And this is the night after, the night before this, he's saying how emotionally close he is to her now, right? Suddenly it goes from not emotionally close to emotionally close, and now he's like, I don't know if I feel safe with her. I don't know if I can trust her, because he's already setting up the letdown, right? He's already setting up the deception.
Yeah.
And then when they get there, she shares that she's a little uncomfortable.
With all the good comes all the bad, and in the moments that were bad, I felt like the deepest things that I'm afraid of, which is being rejected.
And I think for straight up reasons, they dumped her, they lied to her, they twist her left and right. And in that moment when they're at the table, at the round circle, whatever, she's very diplomatic. She's very careful about what she says. She almost seems receptive to being heard. But Max and Ash just gaslight her, treat her like crap. When she's talking to the camera behind the scenes, she says straight up she's not going to let them manipulate her anymore.
Yeah.
And I like seeing her take a bit of her power back in that.
We were almost fooled, Scott.
Really? I almost had you fooled? I think we can finally drop the act.
Yeah.
But it was so uncomfortable. It's so gross to watch.
It was kind of that final nail in the coffin of like, it would have been a great place for Maximo specifically to take some responsibility at all for the fact that their throuple with Becca was not working well, and he doesn't, and instead he just turns it all on her. It's really irritating.
And then they both laugh, and then they say, we're open.
Now we can truly search for someone that aligns with us. Call us.
Because this is all just an advertisement for them, which honestly the worst advertisement in the world.
Yeah, I did walk away feeling like I really liked Maximo and Ash when they first came into the house, and then by the end of watching the show, I really don't want to see them on TV anymore.
Ever again. They're for me on like the lowest tier reality people I've ever seen, including like those people that were borderline violent on that Survivor season.
Stop it.
No, they're right down there with me, because what they're doing is emotionally hurting people.
Yeah.
And what the people on that Survivor season did was they damaged people's property, which is a different kind of harm, but it's a harm.
I've watched a lot of reality TV, so for
okay.
me, they're not like, it's just irritating. I don't like watching people that preach accountability and then don't take any. I don't like that. I don't like when people say things and then don't hold themselves accountable to what they hold other people accountable to, and that's what I feel like.
I think I'm particularly triggered by them because they remind me of people I knew, because they remind me of the gaslighters and the abrazers that I knew. And I'm not saying that they're this way everywhere, but I saw snippets where the way they presented, there's no accountability. And there's actually somebody who commented on one of our earlier videos that said that they reminded them of these types of people that have a lot of like preaching openness while doing really emotionally harmful things to other people and manipulating other people. And that's exactly what I saw at the end. And I felt, and I got brought in, but I think I'm also offended. I'm angry because I got brought in early on for the same reasons that so many people did.
Yeah.
It was their perceived, that preached openness with deception. Behind every word. I don't know.
Yeah, it was frustrating for sure, but it was nice to see Becca be able to, because I think she forgave them several times in the show.
She
tried.
At
the end,
she
was able to say, no, I don't want to be in this relationship. No, I'm not going to take full responsibility for why this didn't work out. And like, I wish you the best, but I got to move on. I got to do my own thing. And she did that really well.
And then they still slung her, but she stayed strong. She didn't let them break her down. She believed in herself.
And she's just a kind person. Like, I
think she's just a very open, kind person.
Yeah, she didn't really say anything super negative, about them, which was really nice.
Yeah, allow us, Becca. Right. Allow me specifically, Becca.
So yeah, I think it's weird because this show overall, the two couples I liked the least going into this were Dylan and Lauren, Sean and Britney, and at the end, those are the two couples I liked and respected the most. Yeah. So it was just a complete 180 for me with that. And then the two, I think we expected Ramon and Ashmal to have a messy situation. We all knew
they were a mess. I still have compassion for them.
Yeah, me too.
For sure.
Right.
But they were messy. Such a mess.
Yeah, they were a mess. And then Maxwell and Ash, I ended up really disliking by the end. I just didn't want to. I didn't want to watch any of the scenes with them in it. I didn't want to watch any of the behind the scenes where they're talking about their feelings. I just didn't want to watch it anymore because I was so frustrated.
I try not to wish people ill in my life. I hope I just never see them. I hope I never see them on TV again. Never encounter them in the wild. You know what I mean? They're just people I would never want to cross paths with.
Maybe they watch the show and realize how it's coming off.
That's true.
That would be nice if that were to happen.
And I would hope that they would find growth in that. Yeah. But if seeing what they already presented, I couldn't imagine them ever being accountable for their actions.
Yeah. Well, let's hope. Let's just hope. Let's hope.
I'll maintain hope.
Because there's always, reality TV is edited.
Yeah.
There's always a narrative for that, So let's just hope that they took a ton
Let's hope they had a bad edit.
Yeah, let's hope they took actually a ton of accountability. They just cut it all.
Yeah, yeah. That could have happened.
Right.
Okay.
It's interesting because overall, actually, I love this show.
This show was great.
Yeah, it was great.
And except for a few plays, it's a reality show, so they're going to do a few things that really push buttons and make it more challenging for the contestants or the people on the show. Yeah. That said, they had a lot of points in this show compared to a lot of dating shows where they were up and open. They gave a lot of opportunities for consent.
Yeah.
And it was very entertaining to watch.
It was. It was really good. There was the sex scenes that they showed were a little gratuitous in my personal opinion.
Well, they get our videos basically like borderline banned if you put it up there because it's too sexual.
It's basically. Honestly a lot. Like there were certain times where I'm like, I just we didn't need to see the level that they showed in order to understand what was happening.
Is it particularly with Jonathan, Ashmal, and Ramon? You can determine scene to scene what kind of sexual acts they're doing based on the action.
It was a lot.
Like, oh, they're doing this now. Oh, they're doing that now. Okay.
Yeah.
And you're not seeing it, but the sheets give a lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot more than other shows show. Yeah. And it just kind of felt unnecessary.
Yeah, it does feel a little unnecessary. And I know they sign up for it too, but I and maybe they're cool with it. But if I were on the show, and I just feel a little like, why'd they have to show that much? Honestly.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
But I would be really happy if they do another season of this. I thought it was a cool look into people attempting polyamory. I think it'd be neat to see couples that maybe had more experience in it.
Yeah, because this is where all baby poly couples. It would be cool to see people that had more experience being poly or having thruples.
Yeah. So, yeah, I really liked it. I don't know. What did you think overall? How do you feel about like Max, Mo, and Ash? How do you feel about the whole situation? Would you watch another season if there was one? What do you think?
Yeah, love to. I mean, we already got a lot of opinions. I'd love to hear people's final take on everything that went down. Most people, I think, that are watching these with us end up watching the episodes as well. So I know we did a lot of episodes in one of our episodes, so you might have a little bit more context. But I think we did a pretty good job of representing what happened in those three. Yeah.
Thank you for watching with us.
Thank you for watching.
And if you want to see any of our other shows that we're watching right now, I think we're mostly focused on Ultimatum South Africa, and then we're going to move into Perfect Match.
And we're peppering some MILF Manor in there as well, which I would be okay dropping that, honestly, but
for the
lols. We might. We're doing it for the lols. Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, so if you like any of those shows, go ahead and subscribe to our channel, and we can watch them together.
All right. Thank you for watching.
Thanks.
Bye.
And then I got it knocked, and I started going,
ridiculous.
All those tearjerker.
Hey, we're going to go on a cruise this summer. You should come with us.